And the same goes to what our contemplations about how readmission may have affected the migration. But actually, I have a question to you, because we had a question here from the audience whether it affected the migration in Macedonia. But since now you have this partnership the whole package already, visa-free travel with Europe, didn't it really affect the illegal migration routes or statistics? You had the opinion poll, or not the survey results, but I suspect there must be some studies on illegal migration from Macedonia. So how did this new regime? But the other Balkan countries would have, because in the Commission they were alerting on banning the visa-free regime temporarily unless the illegal migration is controlled.
It's the problem Maria was explaining. Many poorly educated and poor people from the Roma community and the Albanian community in Macedonia and Serbia were tricked by the travel agents who told them, look, now we'll organize your trip to Belgium or whatever, you get there, you claim asylum, and they'll grant you an asylum status, and you live there with a strong support of the social services. This was a problem for a couple of months, because many left. Then EU started to complain, especially the countries where these people went, Belgium and mostly Sweden, Germany. And then, because this is a big gain for the governments of Skopje and Belgrade, both governments also try to stop the flow. How they do it? They had a campaign, information campaign. The Ministry of Interior went to all those municipalities where the poor Roma Albanians were basically tricked. The newspapers wrote stories how actually it's not possible to get asylum status unless you are politically persecuted and so on. You know, most of these people were just poor and they didn't actually know that the asylum you get only if your life is under threat for political reasons. They produced and they printed many of these brochures, flyers, and they gave out at the borders, telling them, these are your rights under the visa liberalization regime and so on. And finally, I think they didn't pass the law, but they threatened to change the criminal code, placing a new article with an offense of the offense being illegitimately asking for asylum in other countries, which will ban your travel, or they will get your passport banned for I don't know how long, and you might end up in jail, I think. So after such big campaign, the numbers dropped significantly. They also targeted the travel agencies. There were a few travel agencies who did this. They usually send the Roma Albanians by buses. So they targeted these travel agencies, and so the results were that there was a significant drop in the asylum seekers, which does not mean that many could potentially try to get a job in the grey market in the Western European country. We are now only discussing the asylum seekers as a problem. What you ask is also
illegal
wider problem, which deals with the issue of these.
But this has never been detected by the EU itself. So no, from Macedonia there were no cases of illegal migration for work purposes or moving there with their families and so on. It was only by asylum seekers. So you would know at the moment they arrive at the airport or at the border, they would claim asylum.
So I think we have a different sort of a problem, because we also have quite a lot of asylum seekers. Our standing, again, compared to the region is quite high, unfortunately, but more of the problem is illegal migration. Not only asylum seekers, but they just go legally and then they stay, which most probably will be changed now with this new kind of passports. A little bit difficult. They cannot prevent it fully, but anyway, easier to identify. So there will be a difference between old and new migrants in a way. But
look, there is also crisis in Europe. We all know it, but also affects the lives of our Macedonian citizens who try to get gray or black market jobs. I know a number of instances where people simply could not live on the salaries they get in Italy, and they came back to Macedonia. You know, you get these gray market or black market jobs. They are usually for hard labor, physical.
And very underpaid.
Underpaid, and when there is a crisis in Italy, those jobs usually go quickly, and also they're so miserably paid that you cannot even sustain yourself there. So many tried and came back. So, but you know, when you get visa-free regime, and it's a gray zone, you get 3 months stay there as a tourist supposedly. You try your luck, you do some gray zone job. You don't earn much, you see there is no point, life is expensive, you come back.
But remember, we did study on migration potential of Macedonia, and it's different from the Ireland study because we surveyed people in Macedonia, asking them question under what conditions you would move from where you live to whether, first of all, whether you would move and under what conditions. And if you could see the results, were that people would not risk their home, their job, if they have one. Even if they don't have one, they have land and sustaining agriculture or gray zone even work, undeclared work in the grey economy in Macedonia. So they would not even leave their this unreported job in Macedonia in their house unless they get a secure job in Europe and a place to live, a house for their family and so on. So it tells you about the Macedonian migrant, which is not anymore a risky one. They don't want to risk what they have at the moment at home for nothing in Europe. If they so this is not the case with the high-skilled labor, as
but they get low qualification jobs. They don't go for their profession.
So even those that have high skilled, high skills, they would move if they are promised jobs which would pay much better than
something like circular migration that we signed with some of the countries. They may request doctors and
yes, that we already have. So in those countries you can actually go with high-skilled labor legally. So you
Czech
don't
Republic,
need to
Slovenia, two countries which have schemes to attract good educated migrants.
So you have serious migration.
Yes.
Many Macedonians are nowadays migrating to these two countries. Now we have colonies of Macedonians in Slovenia and Czech Republic. Previously had in Britain those au pairs and so on, but now Slovenia and Czech Republic.
Before it was Germany during Yugoslav times and Austria and Switzerland also. Now also I read in the airport that new policy the Slovak Republic will have. So probably they will establish a similar contract.
So the worst Roma and rural Albanians, they are the biggest risk for migration, as a migration threat. The rest, they either go to channels which are official, with official invitation, official program, or they go only if they have a good opportunity. If they don't quit their jobs in Macedonia.
So I think this discussion is very good because the setting as it is shows us that with the facility that first of all Georgia has big migration potential, and it is perceived as a country with a big migration potential or migration risk to the EU.
But in numbers, it's not that big.
It's not. It's not. So I think it's very important for you to compare it and to show it comparatively to the EU. But it's even more important for you to study more these problems that you have identified already with the implementation of the facilitation agreement, because you can neutralize their standpoint of having so much strict visa policy towards Georgians based on the perception that you are a big migrant risk for them, with the arguments that they do not fulfill their part of the facilitation agreement, or they have flaws in the implementation of the facilitation agreement. And this, we can share also our experience we did with the European Institute in Bulgaria, and I think visa facilitation agreement study, monitoring study. So we've also noticed so many flaws, and did case studies of people who applied for visas and were rejected, or had problems of being issued visa, though they would fit the categories and would have all the documents requested by them and so on, so they would fulfill all the conditions. And made arguments about the flaws in the implementation of the facilitation agreement from EU side in front of the EU, which got them thinking a lot. So maybe you can neutralize the effect of their stricter policy towards Georgians and the perception that is being created by assessing them on implementing also the facilitation agreement and lobbying.
I think that this process is very tightly
linked
by human rights problem in the country. So this is the main problem which might be driving people to get to other places. And so having example, this Belarusian example, when we have these light pictures, yeah, we have take only these numbers and compare to other countries, but as soon, but what happens? So I have feeling that if even you or accomplish all these objectives in the action plan, or just pretend that you accomplished everything in case of Belarus, so it's not so obvious that European Union would open these borders and accept the liberalization of Belarus. It seems the most easy for them to do this in this area, to succeed in this area, because in other areas Belarus has difficult relations with the EU.
Yeah.
It seems the most successful area, this foreign policy. This area seems the most.
Yeah, I agree with you. My personal assessment on this issue is that the EU is using visa liberalization as a foreign policy tool to democratize the countries in this region, as it was in our region too. So pushing the human rights and democracy agenda is their number one priority.
Democracy framework is the number one priority. I also agree with this, because they never accept visa liberalization with this Libyan case, just to take an example. Yeah? Right now, if even this new government would succeed in several months, it would be impossible for European Union.
So do you see this as an opportunity that EU is using the visa liberalization as a foreign policy tool?
But EU has a policy, ENP, of course. You here are, together with Moldova, most democratic. You have quite authoritarian regime in Baku, now Putin-style regime in Armenia, let's say. Belarus is also quite authoritarian. So, yes, you are probably, with all the difficulties of your democratic process, probably the leaders here with Moldova. Ukraine is also problematic after the changes.
Yeah, but Moldova also just a year ago was under this communist rule.
True. So then that's even better for you. You are clearly then the leader with all the deficiencies.
So it's not so clear, yeah, that we are leaders, because not everything is clear in our cases. We have a lot of reservations for what seems for European Union to make problems in dealing with Georgia. And I mean that it also depends how successful a state would manage to conduct this reform in this direction, because democratizing state, as soon as this consolidation of democracy happens, this is the main side to me. I don't know, I might be mistaken.
As far as I read the news and the reports and the analysis, for Georgia and Moldova, the biggest risk is that they are quite small players here in this whole group. Nobody can deny the importance of Ukraine here.
Yeah.
And if you go by regional approach, like what EU likes to do to make things simplified for them, and also to make things more coherent in terms of policies towards regions, this might be a problem if you are put in a position to wait for more democracy, for more reforms in Kiev. We had a small distraction in our case when EU, clearly Macedonia was leader, way above Serbia and Montenegro. Montenegro was quickly catching up, but Serbia was not. And the danger was that the EU will again deal with the three countries as a bloc. So there was a lot of public debate and a lot of public diplomacy on the part of Macedonia, not to have Macedonia wait for Serbia. At the end, Serbia caught up with the processes, and we all got on the same date the free travel visa liberalization.
But still we were waiting for 6 months.
But we were waiting through for 6 months. And
we are now waiting for Serbia for EU accession and everything. I'm very cross with the EU on waiting. No, I'm joking.
And if you take this, if you take our case as an example to think about it, this might be a problem for you, as I said, because Serbia is the biggest player in the Balkans, and your region, they put it together, is Ukraine.
And actually, you know, I also had one question. I mean, as you touched upon already, Ukraine, this cluster of Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova. I was asking Maria briefly at the beginning of the presentation. So as you did this comparative overview of what the local organizations produced in terms of the research, how far these countries are. So I really wonder how far is Georgia with your assessment, because we also look in Moldova and Ukraine.
Yeah.
So how far is Georgia now from what has been achieved, for instance, in Moldova with their action plan?
I
have seen it, I know it. I know it.
My opinion is that Moldova is leading the process. There we can find political will. This issue is on the top of the agenda of the political elites. There is consensus among them. The government does have capacity and understanding, has invested a lot to understand the process, and has learned from the Western Balkan experiences to how to manage this process further. And the EU is responsive to this urge for the Moldovans to get visa liberalization. They also are very, the government is very open to civil society. So though at the beginning civil society was not the one to initiate the process as it was in the Macedonian case, for example, in Moldova, civil society responds to the preparedness of the government to become a partner of the government in the visa liberalization process. So the civil society in Moldova is actually getting information from the government on the process itself, on the reforms they conduct, policy and institutional reforms, and they are acting as partners of government to inform the rest of the citizens in a way in the country, but also through different projects they are engaging to tell the story about Moldova and the progress they have achieved in the EU. On technical terms, they have invested quite a lot into achieving the benchmark. So compared to the other countries, I think they're the first also in terms of technical reforms. So Political will comes with the comes along with the technical. I don't see that any administration, any government could be not capable to pursue reforms, because they are really basic reforms by the book. So it's very simple. So you can do it if you have money, and EU provides money for these reforms. That is without any question. So you have to just have political will and to make the administration focus on these reforms for a certain period of time in order for them to happen. So in Moldova we have that. We have the visa liberalization as one of the key issues. We have political will, and the administration is motivated to pursue and is pursuing reforms. Plus, it's using civil society as partners to lobby inside and outside of the country. In Ukraine, we don't see that they have capacities, but they are lacking a bit of a political will. Mainly because the government is rather corrupted, and if they pursue all the reforms, some of the money that they are getting will be also tapped. For example, they don't issue biometric passports because they cannot decide which company they should give the tender to in order to who to get the money and to whom they should, as a politician, they should pay, and so on. So though they have progressed quite well, and there is also a good cooperation between government and civil society in this respect. Georgia is next in the row. I think you have institutional capacities and you have pursued reforms, but you're struggling with these perceptions.
Which you mentioned.
I mentioned. And here I think the main role would be definitely of civil society to maybe change the perceptions, or to engage the government with the government to have awareness raising, as you said, in order to limit the illegal migration, the possibilities for illegal migration, and yeah, definitely. Armenia is far behind you, together with Azerbaijan. In Azerbaijan, this is not an issue at all, neither for civil society, neither for government. In Belarus, there is a big interest from civil society.
Excuse me, they got visa-free for the government, the diplomatic passport. So why they would care?
Yeah.
And there is a diplomat?
But the same happened in Macedonia. But the same happened in Macedonia. With the visa facilitation, the Macedonian holders of diplomatic passports, which are everyone that holds a public official position, would travel to the EU without visas. And but this created a frustration with the Macedonian people. We said, oh, you don't care about us, you're traveling without visas, and you just forgot about us. And it stirred even more civil society to react and push for the government on the full-fledged facilitation and then visa liberalization. So it's about awareness, probably. You could see from the Azeris, for example, that no one is aware. Even the think tank that works with us has a very little awareness on the importance of this issue. They all see through economic lenses. What are we going to get out of this, and how much it will cost? And you know, those are the questions which are important for Azerbaijan.
Nevertheless, they are
these issues never were mentioned in Moldova, for example.
In Georgia,
how much it will cost?
Geographic distance also plays a very special role. I mean that you cannot move easily.
It's expensive anyway.
Yeah, because of this burden.
But as you can see from the Macedonian example, it's not about who
Yeah,
will
but
travel and how much travel will or exchange
This is
will.
about information and awareness.
Yeah.
Infrastructure, society development of the society.
It's about
itself.
being free,
They
actually.
are traveling to Turkey, but there's nothing to get or to learn something new or that might be helpful in your relationship with this EU consular office.
I agree. So I see here a lot of actual opportunities for you, as in all of the countries where we're going. I'm writing parallelly what we have been discussing, and I think based on that we can draw some conclusions. And for you here, I wrote that the biggest weakness is that civil society is not very active to push the visa issue on the political agenda. And there is problems with mobilization, but on that stand I would like you to reconsider maybe why do you need civil society. Visa issue is already on the agenda of the EU for to have all necessary agreements that are needed. And it is somewhat on the agenda of the government. You have institutional framework for pushing the reforms. You have already started some of the reforms and so on. So you don't need a movement for this issue, a massive movement like we needed at the beginning of the process. I think that you are at the third phase of the engagement of civil society in this process. If I put you in the Macedonian example, you already have the visa facilitation agreement, you will have the visa dialogue soon, or is it started? Not yet. Moldova already got it, so you will. You will get it anyway. I mean, it's just a questionnaire. So maybe pushing, maybe having the platform to push the government to ask for the visa dialogue to start can be one of the issues. But the second issue, more important, is they're asking.
But the response is that just 1 year should pass and we should evaluate what's the results of this facilitation and readmission agreements.
When Ukraine and Moldova are expected now, what is the latest update?
2010.
No, not this dialogue, but if they gave the liberalization.
There is no limitation.
There was nothing.
Nothing.
There was nothing promised lately, if you would know.
But Russia signed a very interesting agreement with the EU. Just there is some provisions if Russia frees Europeans for this registration burden, so they might put this visa liberalization protection.
We started it first. It was the first country. So it would be a disaster if Russians get it first.
No, I think it helps you all. I mean, Russia, for some of the countries, was a threat. But if Russia gets visa liberalization, then you can have a big bang visa liberalization for the whole region. Because the biggest threat is out of the picture, and Russia is actually causing problems in Moldova, also with the army being in Transnistria, in Abkhazia also, as far as I know, and so it is a crucial factor. So we need, I mean, if...
How can it be? So we need visas to Russia, so Russia frees this visa?
No, but for us it's a politically sensitive question. Georgian government, they are reminding all the time the EU that this cannot happen. You're right, technically, that if Russia gets, then of course everybody is eligible immediately. But this is a matter of political sensitivity, because now Georgians say, for many reasons, also, first of all, how explicit the EU drive is, how you perform, if it's not a double standard. And plus to that, the Abkhazian, these ladies were mentioning that these people have illegal citizenship from Russia. Yeah. And if you give it theoretically to Russia first, it means that you make eligible the breakaway citizens to travel visa-free to Europe, whereas, you know, Europe has this non-recognition, whatever policy, and officially supports Georgia's sovereignty and territorial integrity. So it absolutely collides with
yeah, but I think
the
this
other
is an argument in favor of your government. Your government should not bother about Russia not getting, but you getting it together with Russia, because if Russia gets it, then this argument that you very clearly pointed out would happen.
Yeah, this is the argument. They should not get it before Georgia.
If they get,
or then Georgia should
or
get
together.
Yeah, exactly. So they say that they should not get it before Georgia. So
Yeah, so
or even Moldova or Ukraine. So it's not only about Georgia, but, you know, about this space where these countries are so outspoken about their EU aspirations.
So that's the issue actually. I see Russia not as a threat in your case, but rather as an argument that you can use further for lobbying visa liberalization before or in the same time as Russia. And Russia being ahead with the process can just help you. And on this weakness of civil society, I thought that it's a weakness only for not getting, maybe you can use it, you can neutralize it and use it for advocating further for visa dialogue, but it's not really a weakness, because you are at the stage where you need just monitoring. And you have capacities for monitoring. You have done monitoring now with these baseline studies, and we can produce further monitoring. And you have done for the facilitation and readmission agreements. So it's even two think tanks are here to pursue that agenda and can help the government.
May I respond to that as well? For me, especially based on discussion we had now, there are basically maybe 3 advocacy targets. Government, first of all, and it is on their agenda, but we still there are a lot of things to do, and to better meet requirements and make the process enhance this process towards visa liberalization. And citizens, obviously, we need to work with them because of the skepticism and frustration they have, and you cannot blame them after the results Katie has presented. And we also, our internal surveys and so on, it also shows that not that people are requesting something more than they can get, just what is written and officially declared. So a lot of people are facing this problem. And also after after 1st March, there was this kind of response and opinion within society that people even opposed to categorization of those who could get easier. They thought it's kind of discriminative, and why others who can really prove the reason why they want to go there and can provide all the documents can't be considered, can't get a visa, or I don't. So people said that this categorization is not a positive thing. I mean, this was one of the opinions, what I have heard at least. And they said that, especially that those people who are in this preferable category, they anyway were getting visa before without problem. So this was one of the. So and here, first of all,
this is the same as the readmission agreement. The experts saying so many Georgians will be deported to Georgia because they're illegally there.
And it was also,
so I think you have a problem with the expertise in this area, and you are the expert in the area. You're the best on, so you have to impose yourself.
Yeah, and also political parties
to be recognized as experts. That's why maybe advocating, I mean, increasing your visibility on this issue even more, and appearing as a partner of the government also on this issue would raise your visibility, and that could be done if you can establish better relations of presenting the Georgian story to the EU, because that is how the government can see a benefit in having you as a partner and recognize you as the experts more than any other of these phony experts that are
and also political parties. Also, after this readmission, there was especially Labour Party was objecting this and saying that is exactly that the deported Georgian, the number of deported Georgians will increase, and hence the remittances will decrease and social situation worsen in the country, and it will be dramatic for Georgia and so on. And third advocacy target would be EU member states and their consulates, treatment of which is very concerns everybody, and it's really the issue we have to address, I think. So, it's, whatever you plan to, I mean, as the National Advocacy Campaign, so CPDD would like to be part of it and is there, so please.
We are planning the ESI project. When does it start?
So actually what we are planning is to carry on with that. So we are now running a project where ESI is not formally a partner, but it is, I mean, I met some of my colleagues, and we take more, we would need this experience of yourself and themselves in the Balkans and everybody involved in the process, and Ukraine and Moldova. In the first phase we were more working on our own, so it's not that much of a work in terms of ourselves understanding and translating to others what does it mean, or what is migration, deportation, and data. So with this, I don't know, this is all I mean, there is no clear action plan now in mind of what has to be done, you know, on whatever date and day of the week. But the idea is that our organization is absolutely dedicated to translate this research into the advocacy campaign. I mean, you yourselves are a larger network now, sponsored or backed by PASOS, and having all these organizations involved in the other countries. And I was communicating to Jeff, and of course, you know, he would like us to consult also of how it goes. And I don't know if you have we would be partnering with the ESI to produce again the paper and continue with this monitoring of the agreements. Yeah. For sure, and not agreements, but you know how this is implemented and consulates and this kind of advocacy campaign.
And we are planning to do the similar research as had Battery Foundation, and I think now we will apply at least in October for that. I think it will give us very valuable data, and which and it will be possible to compare with the other 3 EAP countries. We want to make it for South Caucasus, so together with Armenia and Azerbaijan, this study. And if we
what was that again?
the study of Battery Power Foundation, visa policies, it's kind of exit poll.
So you want to do that?
Yes, we want to do, and we are now negotiating with the Polish partners to, I mean, who has this methodology, and to bring the consultants here to help us with it. So the guy who has developed the methodologies, Chajewski, or I don't remember his name, Leszek or something, but Battery was doing it for years in Russia and Moldova, Belarus, Ukraine. And they have already compared this data. They first made it in 2005 and then 2008. So these are very interesting data, and part of it is the accessibility and treatment of people in consulates, and it appears that France was the leader in bad behavior. Which is also...
Yeah, we actually do know something, not exactly what Battery Foundation does, but we do some kind of a survey, so most probably whatever you plan would be more massive, or because we use our resources, but I think we also get this picture. And it would be interesting to have a look how it proceeds, because it's a process, it doesn't end, so you just... look at the dynamics, how it changes, and whatever data we have now after a few months of enacting the agreements having in place, it's already useful to put everything in step. So I think from my side, I already told it to PASOS, and I told it to CIPDD, and once again, I confirm our readiness, because this is one issue, so it's like senseless to kind of work towards different ends, and the more we talk about the consolidated effort of the civil society, and we try to mobilize the others. So I'm ready to exchange as much information as possible.
Well,
Also get it
tomorrow
from
we
your
will
side,
probably
so,
meet for some time to discuss future steps under our project, and maybe later we will communicate on, because we haven't decided yet, but we have some ideas generating. Yeah, definitely. I mean, our experience shows that actually if we work together as a region, as much expert groups can actually associate and monitor work on the issue, can have better results and can prompt the process further. So yeah, I really strongly recommend coalitions on this.
Yeah, sure. I think so.
Within the country, but also in the region, and coalitions with the governments, because otherwise we will not achieve. I mean, we as civil society, as citizens, depend on the actions they take, and they better take good actions that are based on evidence and resonate with the interests of the citizens if we want all to get to the goal.
Yeah, but sometimes government also needs to be pushed, yeah? Well, especially what you have done in terms of researching and monitoring how these partnership formulated in these areas are met. So
this is one kind of push. This is one kind of push,
It
yeah.
doesn't look like
But it is kind of push because it makes them aware that there is someone watching, and it's important for the citizens, and that someone is not the EU only, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. It depends on persons.
It depends how hard the push will.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think it's time to finish.
Yeah.
I think it was very interesting. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting.
Discussion.
And thanks to remaining.